Alright, YouTube. We're going to do version 13 again. Drive leaving Brentwood, heading back home. I am taking a alternate route. So I mapped it to take me a route that I would normally not take, but the intention was to actually take the long way home, if you will. Do a little bit more driving off the highway this time. And actually it's probably, I mean, 2/3 of this drive I know where I'm going. There's probably about 1/3 of it which I never take, and so I'm stopping that. Car could have gone, but it's a tight angle. With me being new to 13, there was a car coming, but the car was actually turning right and I couldn't tell. And since it was turning right, or rather because I couldn't tell it was turning right, I intervened because I was not comfortable jumping out in front of the car. So doing good, no problems, getting over fine. In my book, I'm still going to call that one an intervention, just because the car, and I'll double check in the video or if it got caught or not. But that car didn't even have a turn signal on, so how it would have figured that it was going to be making a right-hand turn instead of continuing straight, I'm not sure. So in my book, that'd be an intervention. That being said, we are now going to try, well, I said we're going to try and avoid interstate. I guess it's not 100% true, but it's going to take a lot more on-ramps and off-ramps and a little bit more urban driving at some points than we did to get here. Let's put it that way. So we have 2.5 miles to go before we need to get over. The car feels like it wants to go, like it wants to push. We are still in standard mode. I didn't switch it over to chill, so for anybody who watched the video prior for the trip to Brentwood, I did not change the modes. I decided I'll change the modes tomorrow. Alright, so about 2 miles out from our turn. Yeah. That's about right. We have a car that's hanging out behind us, and so it needed to get over. Ironically, the car that was immediately behind us wanted to get over too, so. Now, if it's for me, with a mile out, I'd just hang out in this lane. I wouldn't try and pass, get over to the left. I'd hang out here and eventually migrate over to the right lane. So we'll see. We'll see what this driving profile does, if it gets aggressive and tries to pass, or if it hangs out. Yeah, it's actually getting over into the slower lanes. So we're about a half mile out. So like I said before, like half mile seems to be about that that window where it starts to make its move. But that definitely felt different. Like, definitely felt earlier than what it would normally do on version 12. So we're getting off on Olive, aka 340, for anybody who lives or has visited the area. And then we'll take this to Page, aka 364. That was smooth. That was actually impressively smooth. I know it doesn't translate into a camera, probably, but anybody who's driven on version 12 and knows like what the hard stops feel like that felt like it really timed that entire transition from high speed to a comfortable stop really well. My very first video on version 13 probably wasn't super positive, but as we're getting some extra drives in, I think I'm becoming a little bit even more optimistic. The first time, I really think that's the first time, that last drive was the first time I've gone 20 something miles without an intervention. We're going to say we've had one intervention so far. Arguably, it could be old man eyes and inability to see like a blinker or something, but to me, as the human that has to supervise the autonomous driving, I couldn't tell that car was going to be turning right. So so far as is handling this really well. So to give some context there, like I've said before, the car can be really aggressive and kind of like barrel down on people. It knows what its stopping power is, and so, you know, if a car is in front of it and going to be turning to the right and it slows down, it's like the version 12 would just kind of continue to push forward and then do a more aggressive brake if it had to. It seems like, and I hate to use the term more human, but it definitely does seem like in the braking scenarios where it's like following other cars and then having to brake or something along those lines, it's backing off and being a little bit more conservative and giving a little bit more space and making the stops less abrupt, so it feels more comfortable. This is one of those situations where I do wish I had like extra cameras to share, but again, I don't have a lot of extra time in my life to do post editing, things of that nature. So I know that there are some individuals, maybe not a whole bunch, but there are some individuals that really do like to just kind of monitor and follow along for a drive, just to get a true sense of how it works, and seeing it without edits, and you know, because they really want to gauge like a real life scenario, not just, you know, somebody who might be overly hyping the product. So, you know, frankly, as I sit here today, I'm kind of thinking version 13 is a bigger update than I thought it was. I mean, I expected it to be good, but then after my first drive, I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's really not feeling like very dramatic of a change, much less that even in some instances it was actually feeling like a little bit of a regression on that very first drive. But I think every drive since then has been pretty good. If I hadn't intervened right at the beginning of this particular trip, we probably could be looking at another drive where we had no interventions. Because at this point, you know, with the benefit of all the lights and everything else, and just knowing where we are, I kind of expect this to be I don't want to say a boring video, but I expect this to be a pretty straightforward video, knowing what the capabilities of version 12 are. You know, this type of scenario where you're just kind of making a left at a light onto a well-marked road, etc., is not exactly an issue for the self-driving software. Well, let's play it out. Let's see how it goes. It's funny how sometimes you start feeling confident, and that's when something really random happens, and you're like, "What the hell was that?" So, so that's why I do the videos. That's why I do them uncut and try and talk through them to some degree, just to give you all a sense in real time of what it's like sitting behind the driver's seat and your impressions and your feelings and what you're encountering. If anybody's watching the video through this far, do me a favor. I'm playing around with different ways to do the audio. So on the very last video, I actually did that with a mic. Right now I'm not actually using a mic, I'm just using the standard mic that's built into my iPhone. I'm curious if anybody notices a distinct difference in the audio quality, because it's a different mic than I used to use in the past, or different buds than I used to use in the past. So I'm very curious if there's any benefit to sticking with the buds or doing something different to give you guys a little extra audio quality. So I'm going to comment in a second on the yellow light, but I want to see how it reacts here. Yeah, just very confidently held the lane, didn't overreact to the car that was trying to merge in over from the left. So anybody who's been on version 12 knows that sometimes when you come up on an intersection and it goes from green to yellow, that if you're in that kind of that sweet spot where you have to make a very fast decision about whether or not you're going to go or you're going to try and abruptly stop, version 12 a lot of times would have this weird hesitation, and so I would intervene at that point often, because it's either you're going or you're not, and if I notice a hesitation, I'm not wanting to be in the middle of an intersection, so I would make the choice. So I think that was interesting to me, that it just, when that yellow kind of flipped, haven't had a lot of those yet, but when that yellow flipped over, the car didn't react to the yellow light at all. Like it already knew it was going. So hopefully that's a good sign that that the software has gotten to a point where it's either kind of like a go, no go type of decision. Once it hits a certain distance from the light, it already knows I'm going no matter what type of thing. So Page Avenue turns into 364. I don't know if I've done a lot of videos. You guys have seen me do videos on 364, but I don't know if I've done them from this far east. So once we get through the next few lights, you'll notice it'll speed up, and then it's going to be like a racetrack, because it's going to turn into a highway, and we'll be on our way doing highway driving. At that point, frankly, even now, there really isn't much of a reason for it to be in this left lane. So at some point I would expect it to at least get over one lane and just kind of camp or hang out in that middle lane instead of being all the way over here on the left. But as we're speaking, if I bring up cameras, you can see nobody behind me, so no real reason to have to get over at any particular time. Again, for regular viewers or anybody that's interested, feel free to comment. I try and keep this screen up because I feel like the visualizations are what people like. But I've also seen some people do videos where they'll have the cameras up so you can see the side and rear cameras at the same time as you're seeing the visualizations on the other half of the screen. When I'm doing these videos, I'm happy to do it either way. So feel free to comment if you think one version is better than the other, and happy to play around with it and see what people like. If you all are on the fence about what to do when it comes to wanting a Tesla or full self-driving, and is it worth it? For myself personally, I don't think I would buy any car other than a Tesla at this point in time if I was going, if I'm going electric. There are certainly things about Rivian that I like. Really things about various different cars. I mean, my wife drives a Ford Mach-E. I really like her Mach-E too. But this car is also our long distance travel car if we're going to go down to Florida like we are this next week. So I'm going to have well over 1,000 miles of driving with full self-driving to video and kind of talk through and recap. I wouldn't want to do that trip in any other EV right now. The full self-driving, especially for that type of situation, is well worth it to me. Now, I have the fully paid for version. It was paid for with the last Tesla I owned, and they offered the ability to transfer the software, which was a big incentive for me to go ahead and buy the new Model Y. But even if you just do it as a subscriber where it's $100 a month, if you're just driving around town, maybe not worth $100, right? But anytime you're going to do like a long trip or you got some stuff going on where you kind of like that co-pilot assist feature, okay, so subscribe for a month, pay $100. It really does, I don't know how to say, I mean, anybody can drive, right? Like, we've been doing it for forever. We really don't need a computer to drive for us. That being said, it kind of takes the edge off. You end up in traffic, you just kind of hang back, let the car take care of it. Sometimes you end up on those long drives that just, I don't know, especially like if you ever go through like Indiana or certain parts of the Midwest where it's just a long kind of hanging out, not much of anything to see because you're in between cities, and just takes the edge off a little bit, allows you to kind of relax mentally while, I don't know, changing the radio station or something like that, and just keeps you feeling okay when you're doing the drive. So I haven't changed, if you notice, the speed on this particular one. So it really can choose its speed. I didn't downgrade the max speed since getting into the car for this part of the trip. So I'm letting it do what it thinks is natural. It's in standard mode. Admittedly, we're probably the fastest car on the road right now. Nobody's really passed us or tried to pass us. So in that respect, maybe a little fast. But it's not feeling too horrible or outlandish. We do have a car coming up on the left, so somebody wants to go faster than this car. I would say the irony of it to me is that, typically when I do go down this road, I feel like most everybody is doing at least 70 miles an hour. For some reason, it isn't picking up on the proper speed limit, though. It's not 55. The speed limit is 60. So it hasn't been able to pick up on the proper speed sign yet. And the map data seems to be pulling in. Either it's not updating from the map data, or there we go. It just finally turned over to 60. But it's been 60 for a while now. Let's see what the top range is. Yeah, so right now 83 is the max speed. So it could go hog wild right now if I wanted to, but it's kind of keeping itself with the flow of traffic for the most part. Maybe a tad faster. Like I said, next drives I think I'll put it into chill mode, and we'll see how chill mode is. My normal driving speed for this road, probably about 67. I keep it just below 70. Like I said, I kind of prescribe to that 10% theory. which is you go about 10% over the speed limit, you're fine, but anything more than that, you risk a speeding ticket, etc. You know, the crazy part about this is how many other people on the road, when they see the Tesla drive by, even know that the Tesla is doing all of the driving. We're 16 miles into the current drive, and apart from that one intervention right at the beginning of this, and again, if I had other cameras set up, maybe you all would have seen it, and told me that I was overreacting and being too conservative. But admittedly, anytime I do a first drive on a new software release, I really do tend to be ultra conservative, because I'm not 100% sure at that point what's changed. And anybody who's been driving with full self-driving enough can tell you that sometimes you have regressions and sometimes you have improvements. And so until I feel confident about what the limitations of the software are, I tend to stay conservative. And then as I get more confident and understand fully where the limitations are, that's when I give it a little extra freedom to make a decision like that and to do what it really wants to do. Yeah, we've got about 5 miles left in our full trip, and because this is the last part of the leg home, I'm so used to doing this on version 12 that my confidence is super high that we're green lit from here to the end in terms of how the vehicle will perform. It'd be very odd for something to happen now at this stage in the game that would cause me to have to intervene. The biggest issue that I might run into is that it makes a premature lane change, and preferentially it does something that I don't like. But this will be interesting. If you watched my first video that I posted of the evening, we're going to be revisiting that series of interchange kind of sections. So I want to see if it'll pass this. Yep. Ooh. Interesting. I was thinking to just pass it, go around on the left. Huh. I did not expect it to pass on the right. Okay, so this is where we get back to the conversation from before. So if you watched the first video where we got boxed in, now obviously there was more traffic on the road that was closer to rush hour, but we did get boxed in. The car still made its way into the proper lane late in the game, so it was very close to where the road would have exited, and, but it did it safely, so it wasn't that big of an issue, other than I think a human driver would have made the transition sooner and would have avoided the whole issue with getting boxed in. So we get to reapproach that here. Now we're already in the lane that we really want to be in to avoid getting boxed in. If we were over one more, then we'd want to move to the left. So again, not expecting much of an issue, but when we hit the interchange, it's going to be an S, so we kind of exit to the right, and then we're merging from the left. But we also need to get from the left over to the right within a quarter mile. So it usually has to make some very fast and rapid decisions. One thing I'd like to see change already, I'll tell you, is the speed at which it takes this off-ramp. I can control it. I can slow it down myself if I want to. but I'm doing my best without risking life and property, right? To let the vehicle do what it does and test the limitations of the vehicle. See where it has issues, see where it could be improved. So this is the exit, and like I said, we're going to be exiting to the right. We're going to then merge from the left, but need to get over to the right, and then we're going to be making a right-hand turn at the second traffic light. So we're doing 70. We should be taking the exit probably at around, I'm going to say 50-ish miles an hour. Speed limit for the exit is 45. I would say 50-ish, low 50s is a good number. So we're still 70, starting to slow. 35 is the exit speed. Yeah, so we took that. Took that pretty quick. It did slow down to where it needed to get to, but it should have done that earlier. It should start transitioning right now. There's no other cars on the road, so that worked out well. Could have gotten over one more. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't, but we'll see. So when this light turns, the next light, we need to make the right-hand turn. So if anybody is in the right lane, we'll end up, which somebody is taking the right lane. So if anybody's over there, we either have to pull in behind them, or depending on how quickly they go around them. So they look like they're a slow starter. Big old truck. So is the car in front of us. So wow, both of these cars are really slow. Usually from that light, most people, it's like treat it like a drag strip light. As soon as that light turns green, people are shooting off the road, getting up to 60 as fast as they can. Okay, and so it'll have a yield here. Have to look for cars from the left. There are no cars coming, and it just goes. So nice and smooth. We'll see how it handles itself. I've already done this once in video, so my expectation is that it's going to do exactly what it did earlier today, which was a more confident turn when it gets up here to make this right-hand turn in about 0.4 of a mile. It's a little over 90 degrees. It used to slow down to probably about 9 miles an hour. Now it seems to be doing that in the teens and doing it well. Like it's not too fast of a turn, and in fact it's more normal. So therefore, if you had traffic or somebody following behind you, they don't feel like you're driving really slow. So I like that, because then it kind of takes the pressure off. You know, when you see the car slow down to like 9 or 7 miles an hour, you can almost envision the frustration on the people following you in terms of like how they're feeling as they watch. So from 30 to teens, no problem. Didn't feel aggressive, didn't feel too fast. That was good. I hope it continues to do that on these types of turns. You know, I hate giving you all a boring drive, but a boring drive is actually what we're looking for, truthfully. You know, jokingly, some people are saying that it's getting harder and harder to produce YouTube content around this software, just because there's not as much to really talk about. It's doing what it should do. Like I said, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of robotaxi, or the perspective of my father or mother being a little bit more uncomfortable driving down the road at night, or things of that nature, right? Like they need to get somewhere, but they still want the independence to be able to get in their car and go somewhere without fear of, you know, their eyesight or their hearing or their immobility or something like that, restricting them from being able to go out and do something. and frankly, it's getting really freaking good. Like a vision-only system, you compare this to the amount of money that like Waymo is spending. You know, I mean, from a business decision perspective, I love the in a safety perspective, right? I love the kind of the backup of having other sensors and technology there. But human beings don't have radar or LiDAR or whatever. We're just human beings using our eyes, and so I think from that perspective, it's more than fair to say it's doing a good job. All right, so yep, so it's just, once again, because of my son being parked in the driveway, it does not want to attempt to pull into the driveway, so got us home and just parked on the side of the road. So thanks for coming for the drive. Maybe if my son's not parked in the driveway, I'll do another trip at some point, and we'll see if it pulls into our garage. Thanks for watching.